Hello, my friends. What I'm going to talk to you about today is just a couple of tricks for dealing with hair. So, most hair works really well when the figure is in a vertical posture, well, upright vertical posture. As soon as you start turning figures upside down or leaning them, um, the the hair tends not to work. Now, on Dad's studio, there's a type of hair called D-force hair, and D-force hair responds to gravity and clothes and any other objects in the scene. On Poser, we have dynamic hair, and very, very few people ever did dynamic hair because the tools to make it were absolutely shit. And so, as a result, if you look at any dynamic hair, for say, Red Rusty, for example, they're kind of embarrassingly bad. So, what we ended up with was traditional hair, such as this. So, here I've got mine categorized by type and length. So we've got black hair, long, short, medium, plaits, etc. And traditionally, if you have hair in a scene and you want your figures to start moving around like this, it makes sense to use short hair, such as, say, Zephyrus hair or something like that. One of these shorter, more compact styles. Uh, Say if I add espresso hair to the first Victoria, like that. I bloody don't want to turn that off. Docking off. Yeah. So if I add one of these short haircuts such as espresso to the first Victoria here, and this if you ever make hairstyles for Poser, for God's sakes, don't do this. This is super bloody annoying. So I'll just do a face cam there, zoom into the face. In fact, I'll just frame it here. Providing it without a default colour matte, unbelievably annoying. Generally speaking, if you do brown hair, that's going to do probably 70% of the time people are going to use their hair straight out the box. Brown hair is going to be fine. Don't force people to have to go and add a matte. It's just so irritating. So anyway, in this case, I'm going to colour this hair. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour it with a fairly neutral colour. So in this case, I'm going to go brown. And that hair's, it's okay. It's got some very basic movement morphs here. There's not any wing morphs so much, it's kind of, it's enough if she was going to lean forwards a little bit maybe, but it's not going to be very realistic. But here's a little trick. If you want hair that's going to move around, you're better off to go with spiky hair, such as broken hair here or cosmos hair, because they look pretty much the same upside down or the right way around or whatever. But I'll show you a little kind of trick. If you have this hair and now you want it to look like it's upside down, you could use magnets to drag it around. I've showed you how to do that before. Or you could just do this. You could marry it up with a taller or spiky haircut. So I'll just try Cosmos, see how that looks upside down. Okay, so even there, even though it's not perfect and I've not matched up the colours, that kind of looks like it's a droopy version of that. It's not going to work with the way it trims around the ear and the fine detail, but it's enough to pass a brief look, And you can also add male haircuts to females as well. And I find that there's far more male short spiky haircuts than there are female ones. There are also a bunch of haircuts like Anders hair here, or even this Blaine haircut that kind of looks like it's falling down, or Devonar here, Corey Spike, something like that, a Guillaume. These kind of taller haircuts that look fine. Leandro, that's another good one, where it kind of looks like the haircut's quite tall, which works really well if you turn them upside down, because it looks like the hair's kind of floofing away from their head. Here's another one, Jaybird. So now what I'll do is I'll go to the males, and they're a lot easier to do actually. What I would do is I'd choose a haircut that I know I can match up. So here's a great example. Gabriel hair. It was all the rage when it first came out. It was one of the more sophisticated haircuts. You know, it was a really quite a nice modern haircut. And if I just zoom in on that, I mean, nowadays it looks a bit tired because everybody used it, but when it first came out, it was a really fresh, you know, it was a much more sophisticated than everything else that was out at the time. And if you match that up with Koi spikes, so I'll go back to main and put Koi spikes on here. And Koi spikes kind of is really loose, and it works quite well if a character's, especially if he's upside down, but even leaning back here, that can work if it's the same color as this hairstyle here. And you can even add it to these females, as I say. So there's a couple of tips that, you know, it's not a perfect solution. With some longer hairstyles, as I say, they come with movement morphs anyway, but they very, very, very rarely have upside down morphs. They'll have some blow, left, right, front and back, maybe some bangs morphs, and that's it. Anyway, guys, so that's really my two main tricks for working with hair for characters that are going to move around. Use short hair, especially for the women. And with the guys, use short hair that's got a match, or you can use black hair or curly hair. Here's one that works really well. This Jonas hair, I converted this across from Daz, but it works just as well if I do it upside down here. It's not really a haircut that looks as if it needs to be hanging. If that makes any sense, like when he's here, it doesn't kind of look as if it ought to move downwards. It kind of works in that position as well as it works upwards. So hopefully you found that useful, guys, and I will speak to you again later.